Martin does see that he can win, though, and that is probably very important for him. Might give him a bit more confidence because this is not the matchup that he wanted to see coming into this round.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Night March. You might have some bad matchups here or there, but aggression can win you a lot of games. Just, being aggressive, taking knockouts quickly. If your opponent just draws a poor hand, you can win any matchup. That's just the way it is. Aggressive decks have always kind of had that advantage.
Right, and it makes keeps giving your opponent that awkward situation with cards like Shaman. Normally you just put him on the bench and you don't worry about him, but Night March is so fast and so aggressive that you have to feel like, oh boy, do I really want to put this Shaman out? Do I really need those cards? Because it's going to be a liability hanging out on the bench to be pulled up later.
Yeah, so, both these players are very experienced, obviously excellent players. They probably have played this matchup out quite a few times. But yeah, Diego, I'm sure he's looking to get some revenge in game number 2, get his Landers EX up and running a little faster. He also had to sacrifice Zubat early on in that first game. And really those Golbat and Crobat drops are some of your most important offense in this matchup.
Right.
Being able to take extra prize cards without having to use attacks.
And we didn't even see, we saw some biting going on with those bat abilities. I don't think we saw a single Crobat, though.
Nope.
He never really got the bat engine going. He never got his Landers going. And it was still kind of a close match. So, yeah, as we saw, Martin certainly can win, but Diego probably has a pretty decent shot still in this match.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and throw it over to game number 2 in round 2 of the Pokemon TCG World Championships.
Yep, so they're getting set up right now. Looks like both players have at least one basic Pokemon, so we won't need any mulligans on either side. Get their prize cards put out. Martin was kind of struggling with which Pokemon he wanted to put out active there first. Looks like he's going with the Joltik, though. Okay.
So another interesting decision is if you decide to go first or second against the Night March deck. Looks like Diego has decided to go first. Opens with that Landorus EX versus Joltik and Pumpkaboo. This start looks much better for him.
Right. He got actually both of his Landorus EX and a strong energy to start right away. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly unlikely for Martin to get enough Night March Pokemon that quick to take out a Landorus EX.
Yeah, especially with Landorus EX's resistance to lightning type. Joltik, even if you're doing 180, that's not enough. You need to do 20 more than that.
Right, got to find the muscle band as
well. So you need to get 9 Night March Pokemon or 10, 9 plus a muscle band or 10. And that's, I've seen it happen. It's happened to me many times. But it is very, very difficult.
Right, so Martin's going to be trying to get his battle compressors online as soon as possible to get stuff in the discard pile. Plays a trainer's mail, but does not find anything he really wants right away.
Yeah, there hasn't been much good mail for him lately. He's come up short a few times on that. Muscle band, not a bad option. He'll need that if he wants to get the really big knockout turn 1, but probably looking for something like a battle compressor.
Right, he's probably looking for a kind of a longer gameplay. Although, yeah, he was hovering on putting that on his Joltik, but probably is going to make more sense on the Pumpkaboo long run, just because that Joltik is probably getting knocked out here next turn.
Yeah, given his hand here, it does not look like he has the explosive start he needs. Plays that Shaman EX to draw, looks like 3 cards, and once again, it's just not a great 3 cards, no battle compressor yet. Does have Professor Juniper, but he's going to dig even further with another Shaman EX. Still no battle compressor. Does drop the float stone onto Joltik, so he can retreat in Night March with Pumpkaboo if he wants to.
Right. By doing that, he'll get a little early damage, and he'll be able to survive the Hammerhead, although the bench damage from Hammerhead will be bad news for that Joltik.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Landers does have 1 strong energy already. If Diego can find a second one and a muscle band, he can actually knock out Pumpkaboo in 1 hit, which would be devastating for Martin.
Right. That fighting resistance certainly slows down Landers, but does not make it impossible to get that knockout.
So here we see another trainer's mail and another miss. Wow. It's not going well for him.
Yeah, he might want to make sure that he got his change of address form in there because it doesn't look like the stuff he's looking for is showing up on time. But yeah, probably
still getting the junk mail, though.
No kidding. It looks like he's got an Ultra Ball that he's thinking about playing. But yeah, he's probably just going to get that Joltik on the bench here pretty soon and go for some early damage.
Yeah, I mean, he's already put 2 Shaman EX down. He plays 3, so he could dig even further and try to find the third one. But, man, that fills your bench with a lot of low HP EXs, and that's usually not a good idea against a deck running Crobat.
Right, so he is going to play that Ultra Ball. He's going to throw away one of his other Joltics, of course. He was looking at his Dimension Valley, and that might be his best choice right here, although it does put him behind a bit on the Stadium War if that starts to go.
Yeah, so here we see Ultra Ball, and yeah, it looks like he is going to go even deeper into his deck, the third Shaman EX. I mean, Shaman EX is super powerful with that setup ability, but does have the downside of just having 110 HP, so we'll see if benching 3 of them comes back to hurt him.
And it is kind of it does feel a little bit like a desperation play here, just because he's not going to be able to run another Shaman in his bench. I mean, his bench has 1 spot left now.
Yeah, there we see the Acro Bike. Finds 2 Night March Pokemon, so he is able to discard 1 and take the other. Another Acro Bike and 2 more Night March Pokemon. Who needs Battle Compressor? You'll just keep drawing into those Night March Pokemon with Acro Bike.
Yeah, a lot of these cards that people play, like with the Acro Bike, has that downside of having to discard the cards instead of shuffling them back in. And again, Night March just takes advantage of all those downsides of all those cards that put stuff in your discard pile.
Right, and at this point, pretty much there's no way for Martin to get that first turn knockout. He will do a decent chunk of damage with Night March, but yeah, not quite enough. 100 damage, that's still pretty strong for the first turn. Right,
and it does leave that Landers vulnerable to a knockout on the next turn.
Yeah. So Diego's going to drop down another Hawlucha. Desperately needs to find a couple Zubat this turn to start getting those down, set up those Golbat and Crobat. As good as Landers is against Night March, it can kind of get overrun once they start getting those one-hit knockouts. It's those sneaky and surprise bites that really give you the advantage.
Right, so he plays a Colress there with all those Shaman on Martin's side. It's going to give him a few extra cards. He gets to go for 7. And he's got to get his Bat Engine online. Unfortunately, Forest of Giant Bats doesn't exist in any set, so just the amount of time that it takes to get those Pokemon evolved up, there's no way to shortcut that, and so it's just raw time that you need to get that going. And it looks like he missed on all of his Zubats there.
Yeah, he has an Ultra Ball. He can search for a Zubat, but you know, this Pumpkaboo will survive the turn, which is unfortunate for Diego. He does have the second strong energy. I'll be interested to see if he decides to commit that to the active and hit Pumpkaboo for 50, setting it up for a Golbat knockout on the following turn, or if he just puts the strong energy on the bench and plays it a little more conservatively.
Right, because if he does that, then suddenly he has no energy for his benched Landers, which he's really going to need. We see that active Landers with only 80 HP left, which means that it's within Night March range right now.
Yeah, so Diego taking a look through his deck, trying to see what's in his prize cards, which Pokemon should he take with this Ultra Ball. Could grab Shaman EX, draw a few extra cards, or he could just go right for a Zubat. So let's take a look through again, and you know, I don't think I see many Zubat in there. He plays 4 in his deck, but yeah, maybe only a couple in there. Could have a couple in his prize cards.
Yeah, that seems to be what's going on. That might be what he was coming to the realization on and just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, so it does find that Zubat, needs to get that down to evolve into Golbat and Crobat eventually. Again, getting that additional damage through those abilities to get some knockouts for free, basically. And he does commit the second strong energy to Landers EX, trying to set up for that big play next turn.
Yeah, he does have a Colress in his hand, so looking for getting a bunch of cards on the next turn. So I guess he's hoping that he'll be able to find the energy he needs. Does get a prize card. It was not a Zubat, though.
Yeah. And if you're a Martin there, I think you're feeling pretty happy about this situation. Your Pumpkaboo survives the turn. You'll get a knockout on this Landers EX. So even missing a Battle Compressor in the first turn, you're still in a pretty decent spot.
And he's got another double colorless in his hand, so he's able to set up that benched Pumpkaboo. He's really getting everything going the way he needs right now.
Oh, yeah. So we got another energy going on to the bench Pumpkaboo. We got Night March all set up for the next couple turns. He'll certainly get a knockout this turn. He did 100 damage last turn. He'll do an additional 20 since Joltik is in the discard pile now. Gets that Versus Seeker for a Professor Juniper. He can dig for some more cards if he wants to.
And even gets another Joltik out there. Does make him give up a Lysander there if he plays that card, but he does have the, of course, 4 Versus Seekers to pull those supporters back out of the discard pile.
Right, so there we go. Professor Juniper discarding his hand, drawing a fresh hand of 7, just allowing him to see more and more cards. And this is going to be pretty relevant if he can find a Battle Compressor, get more Night March Pokemon in the discard, or even just thin out cards in his deck, because now that he's starting to take those big chunks of prize cards, he has to worry about N disrupting his hand.
Yeah, I don't think he got a compressor there, and I don't think we've seen one yet. He does fill up his bunch with his... Oh, no, decides not to do that. He's been pretty lucky with his Acrobike so far for getting Pokemon in his discard pile. He does have a computer search as well, and maybe that's why he wanted to not quite fill his bench up yet.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to go ahead and take that knockout with Night March. Going to take his 2 prize cards, and now this will be a pretty big turn for Diego if he can find Golbat and keep the pressure on. And that Focus Sash is going to be huge on his Landers EX.
Right, because pretty soon Martin is going to be at the point where he will have enough Night March Pokemon to one-hit knock out that Landers. And suddenly the Focus Sash means that it doesn't matter. You could have 100 Night March Pokemon in your discard pile. You would be disqualified for too large of a deck and playing too many copies of cards, but it still would not be enough to knock out that Landers.
That's right. All right, so Diego does get that Focus Sash. Yesterday we were talking to Andrew Mahone, who's also playing the Night March deck, and he said one thing he really hated playing against was these fighting decks with Focus Sash, because Night March thrives on these one-hit knockouts, and Focus Sash denies that opportunity. You will never knock out this Pokemon in one hit. Focus Sash prevents it, and when you have such low HP Pokemon, it really gives your opponent an advantage surviving an attack and being able to strike back and get extra prize cards.
Right, and also Diego plays a few of those super scoop-ups. Normally you're going to use those on your bats, maybe a Shaman, but here he may even use that on a Landers. Take a giant hit, go down to 10 HP, super scoop-up, bring it back out, put another Focus Sash on it.
Yeah, that certainly is something that could come up, and let's see if Diego can pull off any crazy moves this turn. He does find a strong energy, that's pretty strong. He can Hammerhead for some extra damage. Did he find the Golbat, though? That's the big question.
I don't see one in his hand there, but he could be missing it. He's looking through. I see another Hawlucha. He does have a Lysander as well, but looks like he's just going for the straight-up attack here.
Yeah, so another missed opportunity for Diego. He has not been able to really get his Crobat up and running in this matchup yet. I do notice he hasn't been playing, he doesn't play any repeat ball in this deck to help get any extra Zubat out. We usually see that in these kinds of decks, just relying exclusively on Ultra Ball to search for his Pokemon, and he just has not been able to find them.
Yeah, it's always the trade-offs in these decks. The repeat balls really help with your bad engine, but he's not playing those, and it looks for a bit more consistency in bouncing them once he does have them.
Yeah. So now Martin again, even though this matchup looks pretty bad on paper, he's put himself in a decent position, playing it as well as he can. Using only Pumpkaboo in this matchup, you want to use that fighting resistant Pokemon. Finally gets a Battle Compressor up and running so he can hit for enormous amounts of damage. Without that Focus Sash, Landorus would probably get knocked out this turn.
Looks like he may only be compressing 2 cards at this point. His Acrobike has helped him out quite a bit. Yeah, so he's going to compressor away that last Lampent and then his other 2 Battle Compressors.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, you got to wonder if Martin can, kind of close out this game. He's used quite a few energy already. This Pumpkaboo won't get a knockout, so Landers will follow up with the Hammerhead next turn to get a knockout, and it's just going to kind of be a race here. Who can get to their 6 prizes first? I think Diego really, really needs to find a couple more Zubat, get Golbat out, and get that going. He only plays 2 Landers EX, so this is really his last offense.
Right. He goes and gets that Mew so that he can have another Night March attacker, because he really doesn't want to put that last Pumpkaboo up front and then suddenly not have any more Night Marchers left.
Yeah, that does present a pretty dangerous situation, though. Hawlucha can do pretty big amounts of damage to Mew EX, with a strong energy, a muscle band, a fighting stadium, you can actually flying press and knock out Mew EX in a single hit. And then if you have those Golbat and Crobat, you can take a knockout on the benched Pumpkaboo, and all of a sudden those prize cards are piling up for Diego.
Right, and not only that, but the Hammerhead also lets him snipe that bench there. So between the bats and the Hammerhead, oh boy, what was that?
Well, Martin did enough to knock out Landorus EX, but the Focus Sash activated.
Yep.
After you use that, the Focus Sash goes to the discard pile, so we go ahead and take that big hit, and Landorus will survive with that 10 HP.
Yep, that big attack that big item card we talked about, Focus Sash, really slowing down the Night March deck. But of course, if Martin can keep this out, he'll be in good shape. Diego currently doesn't have any way to reset the damage on that Landorus, and it's really his only attacker right now.
Yeah, and at this point, it might not even matter if you reset the damage, right? I mean, if Night March is doing enough to knock you out in one hit, then, I mean, even scooping that up might not even be the best play. You're going to get knocked out anyway, so what's the point?
Right.
So you might save that for a Golbat or Crobat.
Exactly. I see now that Diego is playing only the one Focus Sash, so he does not have the opportunity to re-put out a Focus Sash Landorus after this.
Yeah, this has to be the big turn where Diego gets a couple more of those bats out. He needs to get probably Golbat this turn so he can set up for a Crobat on the following turn. Ideally, he would get a second Zubat down as well. He's really close to winning this game in a couple turns. He just needs that extra push.
Right, but also his hand isn't exactly what he's looking for either. It looks like he does have a Lysander, but he's got a Versus Seeker, he's got a Hawlucha. He does have an N and a Juniper, I think, as well in there. So he does have a few different options to get in there, but none of them are really like synergistic.
Yeah, I mean, he could grab a Colress out of the discard pile with Versus Seeker. That would get him a nice 8 cards. That wouldn't be too bad. I think he's trying to figure out if he can play a Lysander here. If you could Lysander out the other Pumpkaboo and get a double knockout this turn, that would be pretty huge.
Right, and we do see the muscle band, so boy, that just might be enough with that other strong energy.
It looks like he's going to go for the Colress instead, though. He did have the cards to pull it off. He had another strong energy. He had a Lysander. Could have taken the double knockout on Pumpkaboo. Looks like he's really trying to dig for Zubat and Golbat, though.
Right, but if he does that double knockout, then suddenly Martin has no Night March Pokemon on the board, and who knows what he's got in his hand, I guess.
Yeah. I guess it's a trade-off. Diego just does the math and says, you know what, I think this is going to give me the best odds of winning the game, so let's go this route.
Right, so his hand, he does have that scoop-up Cyclone in there. That's the rarely seen A-Spec that gets played in these bat decks sometimes.
Yeah. Now, I do see an Ultra Ball in Diego's hand, so he can go ahead and play that, grab either a Golbat or a Zubat. I don't know if he has enough to get both, so that might be a problem, but we do see that Scoop Up Cyclone. He has not attached for the turn yet, so he can go ahead and use this to pick up Landorus, put it back down, slap another strong energy on it, and slap the muscle band back down and use Hammerhead with a fresh Landorus EX.
Right, although as we mentioned before, now there's enough damage or enough Night March Pokemon in the discard pile that really doesn't save Landorus from anything.
Yeah. See an Ultra Ball discarding Shaman and Lucario EX. Lucario, a pretty risky Pokemon against the Psychic type Pokemon that the Night March deck has. So he's going to go ahead and throw that away. Yeah, I'm interested to see what is he going to take. Will he find another Zubat or will he find a Golbat? It's actually a really tough call.
Yeah, it looks like he is going with the Golbat there, though.
Yeah. Golbat, he'll probably put 20 damage on, looks like he's going for the Mew EX. This does set up a pretty nice next couple turns. He can Hammerhead, get the knockout on this Pumpkaboo, put 30 on the benched Pumpkaboo. And then on the following turn, if he evolves to Crobat, drop 3 damage counters on Pumpkaboo, he'll knock it out. Then he just needs to knock out Mew EX to win. So Diego setting himself up to win the game in the next 2 turns.
Right. Oh, and he does get that Fighting Stadium, maybe hoping that if Martin can't find another Dimension Valley that he actually can't attack with either of his...
Even better, it's a Silent Lab, so we can shut off Mew EX. That versatile ability won't work. Then the only attack Mew EX has is Replace, which you really don't want to do.
I don't think that I've ever misidentified Silent Lab for Fighting Stadium in the past, but yeah, they do look a little similar there.
Yeah. All right, so let's see what Martin decides to do. If he has Dimension Valley, he'll probably go with Mew EX. This is going to be tough for him. I think the game is kind of out of his hands at this point. It's really going to be up to what Diego draws.
Yeah, I do see a Dimension Valley in Martin's hand, but I don't know if he has the energy as well.
All right, so let's see.
Oh, yeah, there's the energy right on top. So if he wants to, he can Night March this turn.
Yeah, and I'm sure he will. He has to keep applying pressure. There is Computer Search. I think Martin's probably going to dig for N, try to disrupt Diego's hand because he can see this. He can see, well, if Diego has all the cards he needs, I'm going to lose next turn, so I need to N and try to disrupt him.
Right, and he does have everything else he needs there, so he'll play out the rest of his cards before the end, put the other Lightning Energy on, put the Stadium down. Now he gets to do a perfect end and not losing any cards that he needs there. So yeah, a pretty great setup there for Martin. And
you can see the contrast between these two players. Martin's deck is very, very low on cards. He has kind of thinned out all the cards he doesn't want. He's just got to have a high percentage of drawing cards that he does want to draw. Diego, on the other hand, has a ton of cards left in his deck. He has not been able to cycle through cards as quickly, so he may not draw the cards he needs.
Right. Currently, there's a high number of cards in Pokemon trading card game that let you draw high numbers of cards, and those chain into each other, and if one player gets an advantage there, it can really stretch out.
All right, so we'll see what Diego draws off of this. Okay, so he does have the Crobat. That's actually really big. He can drop that down. To knock out Pumpkaboo. That'll give him an extra card off the prize card. And at that point, he would actually only need a Muscle Band. If he attaches the energy to Crobat and a Muscle Band, he can skill dive for the game.
Right,
actually,
right.
He doesn't even need to attach. Dimension Valley's out there.
Oh yeah, so he's in decent shape here. He does have a scoop up in his hand too. If he doesn't end up finding that Muscle Band, he can scoop up and try to start resetting for another run of bat.
Right. So yeah, it might just come down to what Diego gets off of this prize card. I assume he's going to go after Pumpkaboo, although, he does have a Fighting Energy and a Fighting Stadium, so he could drop the damage onto Mew EX and then just drop the energy on Hawlucha and take the knockout. But it looks like he's going to go for the prize card. We'll see what he gets.
He
gets the Muscle Band. What a perfect prize card to get. He can even do this the Hawlucha fancy way. Gets the Fighting Energy, Muscle Band, and there's the Flying Press, 100 damage for the game. Wow, what a prize card off that knockout for Diego. That was perfect.
Right, he was kind of using the whammy there to find out which prize card he needed to draw without the town map. Was able to find exactly the right one. He does play, 3 Muscle Bands. I think he had already gone through a couple, so he just knew that he had to hit the 1 in 3 shot there. So yeah, being able to snipe that bench Pokemon worked out really well for him.